In this video, I paint this coffee mug with just 30 brushstrokes. This is more of a behind the scenes exercise, something I'd normally do just for fun and then set aside. This is not meant to be a fully rendered painting. If that's what you're looking for, you can watch some of my previous videos. But I find I learn the most when I push myself with a challenge like this. This exercise is more about simplifying the subject and becoming more deliberate with each brushstroke. While I'm working on this painting, I share some of my thoughts about the sequence of the brushstrokes that you put down, because that can save you a lot of time. And yes, I get a little bit creative and I have fun with these brushstrokes. They're probably some of the longest brushstrokes ever made, so let's get started. The rules are I have 30 brushstrokes or less to complete this painting. So I can make a brushstroke and make a turn, but as soon as I lift the bristles off the board, that's a brushstroke. So I could, in theory, go back and forth like this and cover this entire board, and that would be one brushstroke. But you have to keep in mind though, you're going to eventually run out of paint. Once the paint runs off the bristles, there's not much you can do. I can also layer, but it's the same thing. I can go over the top of a previous layer, but as soon as the bristles leave the panel, that's a brushstroke. If I need to remove some paint, I can use a rag, but that counts as a brushstroke too. I'm going to tone this to get rid of the white of the panel. And I have this old bottle of red oxide. This is from Liquitex. I've had this for well over a decade, so I figure I'll use it up. And I'll just squeeze a little bit out on here. Mist it with some water, and I have these cotton rounds that people use for makeup. And I'll just wipe it on. Might lift a little bit of this just so that it's not so dark. Take another round and just buff it down real quick. The neat thing about doing it this way, like by wiping it down with a dry pad like this, is that it's almost dry already. So there we go, we have a toned panel. Liquitex still makes soft body acrylics, but they come in bottles like this. There was a point where they came in a tube like this too. So I have a whole collection of all these different paints. Here's a sketch of the coffee mug that I did in a photo editing app. I just sort of laid out the basic colors and what shapes I can use to paint the cup. The whole idea here was to simplify the coffee mug as much as possible. There are less than 30 shapes in here, so theoretically I should be able to paint it in 30 brushstrokes. If you'd like to give this a try yourself, you can download the reference photo for this by signing up for my free email newsletter. There's a link to it in the description below. This is the exact same size as the painting, so I'm going to use transfer paper to transfer the image over onto the panel. This is the Sorol transfer paper, and it comes in different colors. This one is blue, and it should show up on the warmer color here. I'll just line this up and tape it down, and then that way I can flip it up, put the paper in there and put it back down, and it will be in alignment. So you want the darker blue side facing down, because that's what transfers over to the board. So just to test it, you can see there's a little scribble there. And I think I'm going to get rid of this shape here because it doesn't seem to add anything, and I could probably just have this white here and that'll be enough. So I don't mind ruining this. I'll just trace over the top of it with this pen and it should transfer over onto the panel. I think I have it transferred. I could just lift this up and I can see where I missed. There's a spot here that I missed and the edge of the cup. So I'll just fix that and get right back to it. That looks like it, so I can remove the transfer paper and the printout. I'd say that transferred pretty well, and I think the blue works good on a warm ground like this. These are the leftover colors from my last video about how I broke my own rules about painting. I used 13 colors. I probably won't use all these. I'll list all the colors on the screen, and I think in editing maybe I'll highlight the ones that I actually use. So this is cadmium yellow primrose, cadmium orange, cadmium red light, raw umber, burnt umber, which is that one, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, dioxazine purple, manganese blue hue, running low on the carbon black, just using the paint tube wringer to get more of it out of the tube. This is Titan Buff. It also goes by titanium buff or buff titanium. It's a nice off-white color to start with. This is titanium white, which is right there, and then I also have leftover paint that I keep in the syringe. I have a video about how I store paint in leftover syringes like this. I find it works better than the metal tubes because you can reuse these. And it's airtight. So that's the leftover palette gray there. I forgot about phthalo green blue shade. I think it'll help with the color of the coffee mug. So I'll just squeeze some of this out on the palette. I'm going to start the painting process. Here's the original photograph, and this is the simplified version. I want to talk a little bit about strategy because originally I thought I could paint the background first and then paint the mug, but I thought about it and I think it'd be smarter to paint the mug first because if I go beyond the edges of the mug, I can then paint the background over that and fix that. Whereas if I start with the background and then paint the mug, if I go beyond it, I'd have to go back in with the background again. That's going to cost me some brush strokes. So it pays to think a little bit ahead, and I could see where I can use the same color for probably this area here. I don't think I have hard edges like this. This just represents the basic areas of color. And even this section here, I don't think I need to paint this. I could probably do a white stroke and then just let it fade a little bit towards the bottom. So that's the plan, and it'll probably go differently than I anticipated, but that's what I'm starting with. I think I'll start with the left edge and try and get this whole like U shape. I mixed up all this color here, and I really need to load up this brush so I can get that whole entire area. I have a ton of paint on here, and here goes the first brush stroke. Might be a little too thick. I'm trying to spread it out. So that's number one. I'm thinking for number two, I can do like a gradient brush stroke where I have the lighter color on the left side of the brush and the darker color on the right side and just do one big stroke. So I'll try and pick up some of that color, and maybe I could take a little bit of this darker color, just sort of get a gradient going on here. A little bit more of the lighter color. All right, so I was on the wrong camera, but I did a brush stroke down like that, so that's brush stroke number two. I think I'll do the white highlight next, just to make that filled in. Pure white might work on this, because it's a pretty bright highlight. I could just put a little bit of the blue in there, and that's number three. I think this dark section here is going to be difficult, because if I touch this light area and then try to go into these areas, I'll be dragging this light area into there. So it might be better to do this in the handle, and maybe do this separately. If I have enough paint, maybe I can go down here, come back up, and then put some of this in here. I mixed up all these colors, and they contain phthalo blue and phthalo green. I have an entire video on how to mix different shades of green, and I also include how to mix like a turquoise color in that video too. There's a link to it in the description below. It's in the related video section. I'm going to go back up into the top here because I need to get into this corner right here, like that. I'll drag some of the color back around. It's okay that I'm going over these lines. I might touch up this handle a little bit. And I think I can escape through the bottom here. I still have paint left on the bristles. And I think I can do one last stroke here. This is kind of tricky, but we'll see what happens. And that's number four. Number five will be this section. That should be easy. The right side of this is wavy. I guess I'll have to fix that up with the outside color. So that's number five. This whole process has me thinking about my brush selection a little differently. It's because I have only so much time to get in there, and you can see how sloppy this edge is, and I think I would have done better with a brush like this. Originally I picked out a round like this one, but I think it has too much of a point and it's too wide for this little section here. The light color of the handle is pretty much the same color as this, and it's a pretty simple shape. I'll pick up some of the light blue color, and I'll just try and put this in here. I think the most important edge is probably this outside edge. Uh-oh. I'll have to fix that. That's going to cost me. If I could flip the brush around here. Maybe I could fix that. And I'll swing it around. So it's number six. I took some of this dark bluish green color and I added black to it. And that's for this opening here and the section underneath the handle. I think this is a little bit lighter than that, but I think I can get away with using the same color. This is more of a natural hair brush. It's a little bit softer. I'll see how that works. So just pick some of this up. Oh, I picked up some of that light color, see if I can mix it in there. All right, so I'll go straight down, then flip the bristles over, fill in the bottom section, and I think maybe, can I blend this a little bit? And you know what, I could probably just fill this in. Oops. There we go, number 7. Put gloves on because I was getting paint over my hands and the phthalo blue and green. They're staining colors and it gets everywhere. Just makes cleanup so much easier. Take some more of this dark color and I'll do the opening here. I think the curve will be the hardest, so I'll start with that. You know what, I think I probably should go into this area a little bit more. Curve it around. Probably should have put more paint on the brush, but I think I can make this work. In fact, I think I'll go a little bit closer. It's almost like I have to rotate the brush to get it in position. And I'm going a little bit close here so that I don't really have to put too much detail on that rim. Then the last part here, I'll just try to like blend this together a little bit. Gotta get this little section here. And the last bit, I'll see if I can actually touch up against this color. I'm getting a free highlight. There we go, number 8. This seems like a waste. I probably could have got it with this brushstroke here, but whatever, I gotta fill this in. Okay, that's 9. I turned this sideways because I think I can get the background easier. This curve will be easier to paint if it's at this angle. I mixed up this brownish gray background color, and I really want to load up my brush because this is a big area to fill. I'll start at the edge and start working it in. And when the paint wears off, I can get closer to the coffee mug. So I think I have enough on here, and I could push it this way to get to this edge of the table. It's hard to get into this corner. I think that did it. I could pick up some of this paint. I'm just trying to carefully cut in around the top of this coffee mug. I could probably push the paint in here like I did on the other side. I shaped the brush a little bit. Oop, went a little too far. Got some of the blue in there. And I could probably just go over that. There we go. And I think that's it. Did I get everything? Yeah, it looks like it. Smooth that out a little bit. And I think that's done. So that's number 10. I'll put this little piece in here and that'll help fix this edge. This is kind of tricky because I'm picking up that green. Trying to steady my hand. That's number 11. I mixed up some of this grayish purple color, and that will be used for this shape right here for the table. And I rotated it again so I can get into this angle easier. There's a darker color that's like the shadow of the mug, so I'll only go up to this blue line. I'll load up my brush, and just like last time, I'll get a lot on there. I'll start over here. I think a good thing is to do the edge. That way you wear off some of the paint off the bristles, and then when you get close to the line, you got more control. And this is the tricky part. Put back into this corner and go straight down. Make a turn. See if I can back into this section and get a straight line out of this. And that's number 12. I gotta get this tiny little shape in here. Oof. The right side is kind of tricky here. And that actually should have been the darker color, so I'll have to touch that up later if I have the chance. I'm just quickly blocking in this shadow shape from the coffee mug. And that makes 14. I'm 14 brush strokes into this, and it's totally blocked in. That's a good thing because that leaves me 16 more brush strokes to complete it. As I mentioned previously, it's good to think about your strategy. And I was looking at this and I recognized a few things I'd like to fix right away. First one is this handle, is that it looks round. It should be more flat. So I need to paint this dark shape and cut into it a little bit more. And the other thing is I like to fix the top of this mug. I cut into it with the gray, and I did that on purpose because I didn't want to have a gap between the shapes. So what I'll do is I'll paint a fine line around the outside of the top of the mug. And that brings me to the left side of the mug where I want this to go more straight. You can see the top of it juts out a little bit too much, like in this direction. So what I was thinking is if I paint the border around the mug, it doesn't matter if I get into the background too much, because when I come back in with this gray color, I could fix this and then curve around here and fix any of the colors that go into the background. So that's a little bit more efficient way of painting this, and doing this exercise makes you think in that manner. This dried a little bit streaky, so I'll probably go over that to make it darker. So this has been drying overnight. Some parts of it are still a little bit wet. You can see there's some glossiness there. But while it was wet, I took the opportunity to sign it, and I did that with one of these tools that's often used for pottery. The end of it has like a round ball on there, and that's what's cool about these open acrylics is they stay wet longer, so you can scratch into it. Since I toned the panel with the red oxide, the color shows through, and my signature now looks like it's this warm orange color. It's number 15, halfway through it. I just took this darker color, added white to it. I'm also adding a little bit of water to make it thinner. That way I can get a fine line out of it. Not sure if this is the right brush. Yeah, I think that might work. Thinking about this, I might be able to go around like that and then back down. Whereas if I start like this, I think it might be hard to come back around this way. We'll just have to see what happens here. I think that gray is still wet, so it's not really sticking. Okay, so that's 16. I might dry this just so that the paint will stick to it better. I got a little sloppy at the end there, but I put a nice highlight on there. So that's 17. I think I'll put that color around this side too. 18. Do one more pass on the rim. So I'll start up here. My sleeve is stuck on the easel. 19. I might put some more brush strokes onto the mug itself, and I'm trying to work out a little bit of like a streaky color here. Just put one right down the middle, maybe about here. So that's 20. I'd like to fix up the highlight of this handle. 21. I'm going to try to straighten up this edge and then maybe cut into this a little bit. This could be tough. How do I do this? Maybe at an angle. So I'll cut in here. Oof. Alright, so if I go back like this, I can gather up some more of that paint. Get a second shot at that. And then put my brush like this and rotate it. And now I can clean up the rim a little bit better. Get some of that paint back on the edge of the bristles. Back it up a little bit. There's a gob over here I'd like to get rid of. I'm going to put this shadow in. I don't like how light that turned out, so let's put another coat on there. I think I need to turn my brush so I can get underneath it. I'll turn back around. That way I can get this section. Pick up some more of this paint. So that's 23. I think I'll do the highlights next. I'm going to do those. I might as well just get them done. So there's one here. So that's 24, 25, 26, 27. I've got 3 brush strokes left. I'm not sure what to focus on. So I think I'll put that shadow in there. So that'll be 1. I'll have to think about what to use the other 2 on. 28. I think I'll put a slightly darker edge on this and maybe bring it around the bottom. That might give it a little bit more depth. It's tricky to do this in the last stage here, but let's give it a shot. So it's 29, And the last thing I'll do is I'll add like a transition color between this highlight and the shadow on the handle. And I could probably start about here. Of course, it's streaky. So that's it, 30. So that's 30 brush strokes. Here are some of the takeaways from this exercise. Any painting I do after this, I'll take some of this with me. Having a very limited amount of brush strokes like this really makes you think about each brush stroke. You don't really want to waste any of them. And that forces you to simplify the subject. I could have put more of these highlights in here, and I kind of hesitated in even putting some of those in there because those bright white highlights took up 4 brush strokes. Doing exercises like this definitely makes you think about the order in which you paint things, whether you do the background first or the foreground first. And with acrylics, it definitely gives you an opportunity to cut back in and reshape things like I did on the side of this mug here. If you decide to give this a try, keep it fun and be willing to ruin the painting. The real value is in what you learn from the process, not in creating a perfect piece. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Up next, you can watch my video about how I broke all my painting rules. Thanks for watching.